Greetings, fellow humans. That grimace was not for you. It was for the coffee that I've made. It is truly awful. It's got this pretty meh oat milk that I'm using, and it's not a good scene. It's not a good scene. I need to get some real cream happening here today. Maybe I'll DoorDash some supplies to the office. Hope everyone hearing the sound of my voice is having a fabulous Thursday, and perhaps even has you have a good Friday lined up. I just realized I cut my finger right there. Not sure how I did that. Good Friday and good weekend, actually. Good weekend lined up is, of course, the most important thing. If you saw the headline for this video, we are making an announcement today about something called authoring, but I'm going to save that for a wee bit later in the video because it takes a bit for everyone to get the notices from the old Facebook that we're actually live. So I'll wait for that. But a lot's been going on this week, and I feel like I'm practically frantically keeping up at the moment. Part of it's on my own end. My main computer that I'm using at the office has been flaky for a while. And back when we lived in the States, it was my gaming computer. And if it needed to be rebooted every now and then, it wasn't the end of the world. But I'm using it as my main computer at the office. And I'm I probably need to deal with this flakiness at some point here, because today it was off when I came in, and it shouldn't have been off, and it took me half an hour to almost an hour to get it to work properly. And my really good computer that is primo workstation machine is at home. So not super useful. So that has been consuming a bunch of time, trying to fix it, failing to fix it, and then also doing a bunch of work with local AIs, because the things that I've been wanting to do for some time, separate from the authoring announcement I'll be talking about shortly, is I want to make a system where authors can upload their books to effectively a private AI, and that private AI can then be used to help you basically create a book Bible, to research your own books, to be able to query things about your own books, to look for hey, here's all the books in this series. What open threads did I leave hanging? What hooks did I put in place that I never answered with any other text? Give the authors the power to do all of that stuff on their own and not have to upload their books to a corporate system that may train on their books, or may train on the queries used that they used against their books. I know some people don't want that. So that's something I'm working on, and that's also consumed a bunch of time. 6 o'clock, and you feel like going to bed, Monique? That's crazy talk. Oh, I should turn comments on. There we go. Now everybody can see comments across all the different places I stream. So yeah, that's been something that's been I've been thinking about for a while. I'm starting to play with it. I managed to hook up my big AI crunching machine again. And the reason why it's managed is because it's water cooled and has a separate water cooling system for the main machine. Not bad water cooling. Not I soak up water from the town to keep cooling this computer. It's a closed loop. It uses its own water, then it runs fans on a radiator to cool it off. So I'm doing the good thing. But what I've determined is that to run the kind of AI that I need to run, I need a bigger computer. So I've got some stuff on order to test out. Because that's basically the way it kind of works is is actually, for anyone who cares. If you don't care, I guess throw in the comments Mal, stop talking about bits and bytes. But AIs are measured in how many billions of parameters they have that they're sort of processing. Big full fat AIs like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini are in the hundreds of billions of parameters. And the way that it kind of works is each parameter takes a byte, if memory serves, is how it kind of plays out. A byte of data. And so, or is it 4 bytes? It's 4 bytes. I'm sorry. Each parameter takes 4 bytes of data. And so, of course, a billion parameter AI takes 4 billion bytes, otherwise known as 4 gigabytes of data to hold. And then they have ways of because each sort of parameter is 32 an int32 number, 32 digit number. And so so it takes like a byte is 4 digits, so 4 times 8 is 32. So it takes 4 bytes to hold a parameter, unless they shrink the parameters down from say 32 digits to 16 digits. Then it only takes 2 bytes. And so to fit on like a regular computer only has about 8 gigabytes of graphics, which means you can fit a 2 billion parameter AI on that graphics card, because graphics cards are actually what does AI stuff. Um, and that AI is dumb. But to put too fine a point on it, a 2 billion parameter AI is not even as good as a decent search engine. Um, so like just processing a language, understanding it is like the kind of the extent of what they can do, not actually any tasks beyond that. So I need to basically have more powerful systems to be able to hold the AI that has the parameters to understand more complex things, and then also to be able to like hold the context of all these books for an author. So that's something I've been playing around with. So crazy thoughts for people. I know a lot of people actually. I don't. So a fairly small audience here still at the beginning. I guess Facebook and YouTube have not shared, which happens sometimes. Sometimes like everybody shows up right away, and sometimes everybody shows up like 20 minutes in. But anyway, um, I don't know everybody's like super keen on AI, but I think there are definitely useful tools that are part of AI, and then like anything, like we could all agree that dynamite, the explosives are super handy for mining and for getting materials and for I don't know, getting access to water or something like that. And explosives can be used for very bad things as well. And we could fell a tree for a good reason. It's old. We could harvest the wood. We could do something with it. It's maybe some of the branches are getting diseased. It might fall in a house. Cool. Let's make some of that wood. Or we're clear cutting this forest to build a farm, or to make a farm. In the forest was the Amazon. Um, Hello, Tim and Dennis. So like with anything, I think that every tool has the potential to do good things and do bad things, and it's up to us as people to be moral about how we use tools, to follow our own ethics about how we use tools, and then also to be cognizant, I guess, of how the tools we're using might affect other people too. That like what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander, as it turns out. Um, we have to be cognizant of that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm playing around with that a lot, because I do feel like the ability for authors to not have to remember everything about all of our books forever, to be able to keep writing our books, is really important, especially as many of us we're all getting older. Memory isn't as good, and the books that we've written are always getting further into the past. So the load of remembering details is ever increasing. Um, and the tools to do that are to help us with that are improving. But again, one of my biggest issue with AI is sort of the pure corporate ownership of it. That is risky for all of us. And so I'm all about like trying to make tools that make things better. But I'm also about like I'm as far as authordom is concerned, I'm really interested in collectivist tools. Call me a Marxist, um, which I'm not, but or maybe I am. I don't know. Who knows? I don't think I am. Um, I've been like really thinking a lot lately about how it's hard to identify a thing when you're inside the thing. Um, so that's just me being philosophical in an unrelated way. But collectivist tools, ways that authors can help each other, ways that we can empower each other without having to become a big machine ourselves, or feed a big machine. And so like how do we make it so that authors can do better at marketing their books, especially direct sales books, and cut out retailers, cut out the corporations that are basically like a parasite on what we make, taking a cut for distribution, when we can do distribution ourselves. The problem is that if we leave the big marketplace, aka like Amazon or something like that, then we lose sort of the organic stumble upon us kind of thing that you get from that big marketplace. And so of course, when I talk about like none of us wants to become a big machine, but none of us wants to become a publishing house. None of us wants to become a new retailer, a new reading app or something like that. We've got tons of those, tons of retailers, tons of reading apps. And it's not solving the problem that the authors need visibility for ourselves, and we need more control over the actual selling of our product to a person that we can like look at and say, that's my reader. I handle the transaction. I know who they are. Now I can like, tell them about book 2 when it comes out, that sort of thing. And so working together collectively, I think, is the way to handle that problem, so that no one else, nothing else becomes the new gatekeeper, the new sort of passage portal that everything has to pass through. And if you were here a few weeks ago, we talked about this idea that sort of became like the idea of like a blog ring, but for authors. And that's something that Jill and I have been working on, planning out, thinking about the nuts and bolts of it, and then putting together an initial website. But before I tell you about it, I'm going to read the comments. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kate. Well, you can see the comments from everybody, so huzzah. Tim says they're useful tools, but the way that many companies are pushing AI on into everything has gotten quite annoying and unhelpful. It's true. And it's really funny because some of you might not remember this, but if you were young during the 80s, you'll remember that everything got labeled with digital. Or before that, it was solid state when we were moving from tubes to transistors, and stuff that made no sense to be called digital or solid state would get those labels, and it would be touted as like the best thing ever because it was digital, And I think the scale is different with AI, obviously, because digital was really just like, in some regards, it was just a display, was digital instead of analog. And you're like, in many cases, you're like, I prefer this. In some cases, like, this is obnoxious. This thing does not need a digital display. Now it's unusable because everything is a digital display now, so we're fine with it. But to tell you, in the early years, they put digital displays on things that did not make sense and did not function properly because people didn't think about stuff, or the LEDs just weren't bright enough. So a thing that like you could have had an analog arm that's black on a white background with numbers, aka like a clock face, was easy. It worked great. Good contrast. Can always see it. They would like make a digital clock instead, and the LEDs or LCDs, probably LEDs early on, were just not good enough, and you couldn't see it, in anything approaching decent light. So yeah, it's the early phases of sometimes of these emergent technologies are oftentimes the technology gets put in place. The technology is not mature enough for the places it gets put, and it becomes unhelpful rather than helpful, and it's kind of obnoxious. Yes, that is also, Tim Mill says, combine that with the ever increasing amount of books and info about the books, talking about how it gets harder and harder to remember things, and having tools to help us introspect our own books would be super useful. Dennis says, Notebook LM is great to summarize my books. It makes a small podcast, and I listen to it like, oh yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah, Notebook LM I've used that, absolutely. It's super cool. And I got an email today saying they've rolled out some new features in it that I need to take a look at. And there are lots of great tools. Don't get me wrong. There's another one, Notion is really good. Notion uses Claude for a bunch of things in the background. Notion's great for organizing information and creating even like pages that you could even make public about your books. Claude itself, you can load, if you have a project in Claude, you have to pay money to have access to the project system. You can load about 1.2-ish million words into a Claude project. So however many books that works out for you. And then it can actually like read them all, learn about them. It can create like character sheets. It can create notes. It can do a lot of really cool things. It can even create like emotional, like how, if you work with enough, you can actually cause it to write about how the characters make it feel, which is possibly just mimicry of what people would feel. But it is actually mimicry that's so good that it makes no difference whether it's real or not. It can do a lot of really cool things. And then Claude also now something, if you use the Claude app on your desktop, and some other AI tools have this too, I just haven't experimented with them personally, called Cowork. And then you can just give it access to a folder on your desktop, and then it can actually just read all the stuff you have in there. You don't have to worry about like being limited by cloud storage with the company. The problem, of course, with that is that you are then giving, Anthropic, which is at least a semi Sorry, I'm looking for. I don't know. They've done some things in the recently. They're like, wow, these people aren't complete shitbags. That's pretty cool for a corporation these days. In like telling the Pentagon that no, you can't use our AI to kill people, which is like, if you think about it's a pretty low bar, right? Like that's like basement level expectation kind of thing for what we think, how we think our companies should behave. But hey, in an era where many governments are finding new basements to go into for expectations, having and corporations as well, having that, I was shocked that they didn't fold. Let's just put it that way. I was shocked that they didn't fold to the Pentagon. But even so, I don't really love the idea of giving some corporate system unfettered access to part of my hard drive to read and study what I've put there. And I'm not a paranoid person and generally don't give a shit, but I'm just sort of like, I'm not super pleased with the track record we're dealing with here. So I sort of to bring out some of that. That's why I want to make a system people can run locally or with a smaller company that they trust to actually be holding this information for them, that sort of thing. Yeah. Speaking of devices that haven't improved as we've like made them more complex, smart fridges, right? Like we were promised this idea that the fridge would just know what's in there and would help us with grocery lists, and there's nothing approaching that still, which is kind of honest because it's a really hard problem, and the solution was sold before it was really remotely mature. Hello, Yasmin. Kate says she's shocked too. I'm guessing you're talking about Anthropic. Yes, it is shocking that Anthropic actually like held some sort of moral ground, whereas OpenAI, the company that was supposed to be all good and wonderful because they were actually owned by a nonprofit, has become like the devil. But I mean, like, are we surprised? Like Google used to have as part of their core company ethos, do no evil. And then they decided to remove that from their core company ethos. And everybody's like, not a good sign. And as it turns out, not a good sign. Yasmin responding to Tim says, yeah, now every time I go to a new site, the first thing I have to do is look for a way to disable their AI. I loathe being pushed. Yeah, it's like I'm okay with seeking out assistance when I need it, but I also worry about like my brain, like I need to do things with my brain. And if I offload all difficult cognitive tasks, my brain do be atrophying. So I whenever I do use AI for tasks, I'm like, okay, now what's something hard and enjoyable that I can get myself to do? I swear, if there is one of the best uses for AI is making PowerPoint presentations. I loathe making PowerPoint presentations. It is the worst thing in the universe. And the fact that I can have an AI make a PowerPoint presentation is like, I'll drain a lake. I'm sorry, fishies. Like that's, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not quite willing to do that, but I'm just like, this is what we need AI for. Because to my knowledge, no one likes making PowerPoint presentations. So let's use it for these things that we absolutely loathe doing, and not the fun things we like doing. So anyway, so yeah, that's a project I've been working on a bunch this week. But the other thing that we've been working on, like I said, is Author Ring. So Jill and I, sort of for all the folks who've joined, we've been this came out of a conversation that started in a lunch with Mal with many of you not that long ago, and I'm going to announce it here first. We're kind of like soft announcing it, and we'll be doing some bigger announcements going on, but I figured you guys deserve to know because many of you were here when we first created the idea. And so it's authorring.net. Right there, you can't actually see the name, the URL, because it's being hidden by the banner at the top. But can I turn that off? Not easily without jumping through a bunch of hoops. Anyway, there it is, authorring.net. Yeah, the web rings, exactly that, and that's what we're kind of thinking. Like, how can we do collectivism in a way that is unobtrusive? Somewhat unobtrusive. It needs to still be visible, but where every author still has their own website, has their own e-store, has their own direct connection to the customer, but we leverage each other for discoverability. and I think there's gonna be some nuance that will come into it. We're probably gonna have to, like, one of the things I really I'm gonna actually do, especially at the beginning, is we're going to need to vet what genre people are actually in, because the system is going to the users trusting the system, readers trusting the system, will require them to say, like, hey, when I say take me to the next, why choose shifter author on the list, I want to land on a why choose shifter author, not on I don't know, small town cozy, that, or someone has a dream that they're a shifter, that kind of thing. Like, we need to make sure we have reader trust for the system to work. So we're going to, like, be vetting what categories people get to go in based on their books and stuff like that, and building it out. It's going to be pretty cool. It's going to have some basic theming that people will be able to pick. So it's going to be like a bar at the top of the website, and then it'll be like, next, previous, random, take me to a full list, that sort of thing, of all these different authors. And the idea is to circumvent retailers, to circumvent the gatekeeping of having that happens when every author has to sort of market for themselves. And it's going to be like, I don't know, it's going to be like a lightly paid system, just like, because we're going to have to run servers to do all of this. So we'll collect enough money to pay for it, but we're not building this to actually, like, be profitable. Like, enough profits, we have, like, a bit of a war chest in case, like, things get more expensive or whatnot, but we're not, like, looking to make a ton of money off of this. We just want a system that helps all of us do better at reaching people, because I really do believe that direct sales is the future for authors now more than ever. And it's too expensive for each one of us to run Facebook ads. Plus, by running Facebook ads to drive people to our direct sales website, we're just changing who we give the money to. So I want to work on that too. So yeah. Yeah, some of the older ideas did really work. So please go sign up, authorring.net, share it with people, talk about it. We're working on building it as basic and as unobtrusive as possible, the way it'll sit people's websites, but also still visible enough that readers will catch it. Initially, it is going to be just for direct sales, and maybe we'll break it out so there's a direct sales version and a non-direct sales version. I have to kind of figure it out. But even if you don't have a direct sales website, please do sign up that you're interested, so you get information about it. And that, whether you actually have a site you can put it on right now or not, signing up that you're interested is still going to be great, because you get to become part of the conversation. And I think everybody needs to be part of the conversation about how we do this sort of thing. So yeah, like I said, we're super stoked that we're going to be doing this. And since I have a coding background, I'm pretty comfortable with this sort of thing. It is not a complex project. The most complex part about this is really making it so that it's a non-blocking and fast loading system. I want to make sure that it doesn't block the rest of the website from loading, doesn't, like, slow anything down, loads asynchronously after the fact, but also, like, doesn't jitter the website. Like, a lot of things, like, if it's going to load the top, it's going to push the rest of the website down. So it needs to have space for itself, so that, if it comes in like a second later, the website doesn't jerk down and someone misclicks. There are some little nuances like that, but they're not hard problems to solve. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So I use Payip for direct sales. Every launch money goes right in my wallet without 60-day wait and pout. That's right. No pouting. But yeah, that's okay, Yasmin. And maybe you will get to do direct sales again. Maybe if we can build a system that creates, like, a passive flow of income into direct sales websites, that will help. And it'll make it more viable for people who are like, it kind of worked, I made some money, but it was expensive. If we can make it so that the systems can more people could just sort of passively gain income from a direct sales website, that might make it something that more people can do. So yeah, so I'm pretty stoked. If I ever find an easy way to deal with the tax structure of my state. Yeah, some places do make it really hard to be your own small business in that regard. I agree. And that might be something worth considering, is that maybe down the road there could be a place for certain types of author-driven retail websites that could, through another form of collectivism, also handle the burden of managing taxes and stuff like that. I know Shopify has a thing called TaxJar that you can add in that handles collecting all these taxes and remitting all of the taxes, but it's another cost on the system. So that brings about its own problems. So yeah, that's a bunch of things we're thinking about. Other things that we're working on too, and Jill's actually working on a bunch of these. So correct me, Jill, if I speak out of turn on it. But like there's a lot of software out there now that you can upload a book and it will tell you who your contemporaries are, or you can upload a book and it will tell you, it'll tell you what your themes are, and all sorts of things like that. And it's kind of funny because AI actually really helped a lot of these things become possible through natural interpretation of language. That was like the biggest thing that always held us back for the longest time. Like if you had a cup like this, and you explain to a computer that this is a cup, it'll be like, cool, that's a cup. And you can say like, this is a what is it called, Stanley cups. It's a type of Stanley cup, even though it's not made by Stanley. Well, just roll with me. But if you took the handle off, the computer would be like, I don't know what that is anymore. That doesn't match anything. And the big sort of leap that we made was now the computer can tell still a cup, even without the straw, even without the handle, still a cup. And that's where that's really was the big breakthrough in that we made. And then we've made subsequent breakthroughs beyond that. But what that's allowing us now to do is just have like a lot of really cool tools. And like 2 years ago, people were building software and then charging you money for doing the kind of analysis that on your book that could then give you useful things you could take out of it, and not just like, oh, that's kind of cool, like Myers-Briggs, right? You do Myers-Briggs and you can like read about yourself for a little while and be like, oh, I feel so good knowing that I'm an int J, even though the test itself is flawed and doesn't account for psychosis. But you're the psychopaths, one of the two, and narcissists. I don't think it counts for that either. Anyway, like a lot of this stuff is like that, right? Like, oh, I feel good reading about the thing that I wrote, but it's not actually like actionable in many regards. And some of it is actionable, but some of it's not. But so we're working on tools now that we're going to offer to anybody who joins our school program just for free. I mean, the school program's not free. I think it's like $35 a month or something like that. But then you'll get the tools for free, and it'll do things like you give it your book, it'll read through your book, tell you find the major tropes, and then you can say make a trope map image, and it'll make a trope map image. So those are the things we're working on plugging together that we just kind of want to offer to people, because like I said, a couple of years ago, it took a lot of work to glue all this stuff together, but it doesn't anymore. It's so simple now to glue a lot of this stuff together that anybody could do it, quite honestly, but we're making the tools because not everybody wants to learn how to do that, and then manage it and whatnot. So some pretty cool things coming along that we're going to put together and offer to people. And then if people don't want to use AI for those things, they don't have to either, but it'll be a cool thing. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about like every tool can be used for good or bad, but at a certain point, and this was me, I actually have resisted using AI for almost everything a lot. And I still do a lot. I'm like, no, this my brain, I want to put my brain to work doing this thing. But at a certain point, I'm looking at this, I'm like freaking working in a quarry, chiseling out 2-ton blocks of stone by hand, when a guy over there is using a laser cutter, or a water jet or whatever to cut this stone. And I'm like poo-pooing him because he's doing it the easy way. But really, I'm the one that's the fool over here doing stuff the hard way, when there's this thing that will make it so much easier for me to be so much more productive and spend more time doing the things I want to do. Because all of us have things we want to do and things we don't want to do. And I feel like I spend more time doing the things I don't want to do than the things I do want to do. So I've been sort of like doing some shifting work on myself and exploration to be like, here are things that I don't want to do, that I do want to do. Also, I'm like, how do I funnel this into my writing? So now I'm writing a book on how we actually will spot emergent self-driving behavior in systems, and what will that mean, and how do we act and work with it. So I'm like, hey, I can also take everything I learned and turn into a novel too. So hooray. Long Des2 says, have you ever thought about selling Word formatting templates? My formatting software is terrible and I don't have a Mac. No, I've never thought about selling Word formatting templates. I would give them away if I actually took the time to templatize it, because I think it's super duper simple. If you know with this one simple trick, It's super duper simple, but it's actually true. There's like a little paragraph icon on the home menu bar thingy in Word. And if you click the little paragraph icon, it's right beside the styles, it shows you all the formatting stuff behind the scenes. And once you have that and then know how to change all that formatting stuff and how to work with it, it becomes like super simple. But yes, I really should do that. Make that available to people. I think it could be pretty cool. Because I literally, like, so back in the day, there was a thing called CreateSpace. CreateSpace existed before Amazon could do print books, before Amazon had print on demand. And then Amazon bought CreateSpace and then eventually rolled CreateSpace right into KDP. And now it's part of the KDP platform. However, CreateSpace had Word templates that you could download to format your book. And so I downloaded these Word templates from CreateSpace in 2013, 2014, and I've been using them ever since. I've modified them a lot and actually kind of rebuilt them to be more streamlined for what I need. But they're, once you have a template, it is shockingly resilient, and you can just sort of keep on using it. Is what I'm saying. So yes, I should totally do that. We're building the tools based. Jill says, plus we're building the tools based on our trainings, not someone else. Do you mean like our training of the AI? Is that what you mean, honey? Jill's brain does work well with the AI tools. She gets so much stuff done by leveraging the right tools for the right job. Jill says it's more me than me, so I'm good with using an AI tool for pretty much everything. And that's a really interesting thing too, is that when you're lost in the mechanics of trying to do a task and dealing with, like, I don't know, like you spend all your time quarrying stone. By the way, yes to Dennis for Fred Flintstone metaphors. You're spending all your time quarrying the raw blocks. You don't get to spend a lot of time actually like working on the thing the raw blocks make. And that's honestly, like, all of us who've been in the depths of like trying to deal with the saggy middle of a book, we know that, right? We're like, I'm like deep in the raw building blocks of the book, and wow, if I could just drag myself out of this, look at the big picture, I'd probably write a better book. But I can't. I have to do this part. I have to slog through it. And so at a certain point, yeah, if you can like sort of take the step back and look at a bigger picture, you absolutely can oftentimes make a better product by not doing as much of the work yourself. And I think anybody who's worked in teams and like managed a team of people making a thing also knows that you're better able to make a better thing by being less hands-on in some regards. Yeah, exactly. Dennis is quarries and rock chiseling. That's what writing was for me 20 years ago, but now we got lasers. Exactly. Me too, Yasmin. CreateSpace is where I printed a lot of stuff. I have some books I discovered not that long ago that I've never touched since they were imported from CreateSpace into KDP, and they actually were missing a bunch of markets they could be sold in and stuff like that. It's pretty nuts. Okay, we get some old timers in here. We got people who have the long memory of the things from ancient days. Oh, so Jill says, what I mean was our tool on how to craft a high converting blurb, as an example, is based on our transcripts of how, yeah. So that's a really good point. So everything that we're making tools for, we're like, we go to the AI and we're like, hey, here's Mal's presentations. Here's our books. Here's our PowerPoints we've made. Here's all of our stuff that we've done. We put together, we've been teaching for years about how to do these things. Now, like, here's our genre and trope class where we discuss how to introspect genre and trope. Now make a tool based on our teachings. Yeah. So we're not like just like coming along and saying like, oh, here's all this information out there about how to do the thing, I'm going to make a tool out of that. We are making a tool completely and exclusively on our own stuff. So we're not taking from someone else to do that. I think that's a really important point, you know. Yes, and then Jill agrees. Before before Vellum days were grim. I've never used Vellum. I don't see a need to use Vellum. I write my books in Word, in the final formatting. As I'm writing it, the file I'm in is already formatted for print, which is great because I have fewer steps. I could take that exact file when I'm done, and submit it as print, and I can also submit that exact same file with one tweak as the ebook. Actually, 2 tweaks. When I do it for print, I remove all the underlines from the hyperlinks, and when I do it for ebook, I remove the pages from the table of contents. But the master file is the same, and the master file with those small tweaks gets uploaded for everything, and then I don't have to worry about moving from one place to another, because that's where all the mistakes happen as the book moves from one thing to another. So I decided I wanted to reduce the number of steps, reduce the number of movements. Yeah, and the Facebook ad tools will be based on my presentations also. So we're making tools that will basically be like, hey, this is how Mal analyzes ads, and now here's a tool that analyzes ads exactly the same way that Mal does. And it's like, I'm still experimenting with that and playing with it, but it's working really well, which means we can just democratize everything, right? Authors spend less money, have access to better tools, spend more time writing. That's what we really want for everybody to be able to do. The husband formats the books in vellum. That's good. Outsource. I like it. Yep. So Jill said Mal and I started on a writer. I think we got started on a writer website. I don't know if we didn't get started there. I'm curious what you mean by that, but yeah, it was called Autonomy, not Autonomy, Autonomy, run by HarperCollins. And the whole idea was that basically you just created like authors upload full books or snippets of books, and then you would through a great big popularity contest try to become like the most popular book in your category, and then HarperCollins would actually look at it. Basically, they had authors managing their slush pile for them, but it was also a really cool way to meet other authors and get actual good feedback from other authors on your books. So it did also help the authors using the system. But I like Autonomy. See you, Tim. As it says, the very first website I joined was in 1998, coming up with my second book, and it was the first time I was able to get on the internet. Yeah, Jill and I met in 1996 on a writing website. So we've been at this for a while too. Jill says there are a lot of services with these custom reports you can order from them, but we want to give the authors the tools, so you don't have to pay for the report just to access the tool, and then run the report as much as you want. And also for really minimal costs. So that's kind of what we got going on. We're doing a ton of work on these things, and then, like I said, we're going to use big online tools for a bunch of them, but then we're also like, well, can we just like build and host ourselves as well? So that some things, so we if the big company decides to change what you can do with their AI, or they do something unsavory and you don't want to do business with that big company anymore, which, I mean, all of the AI companies already have, half their body dipped into that pool to begin with, the unsavory pool. They've gone far beyond dipping a toe into it. So, and the other cool thing too is if you think about like what AIs were trained on, that sort of thing, there are open source AI models that were developed by universities and stuff like that were more ethically trained, as far as, it's kind of tricky. Like those open source models were made for non-commercial purposes, so they were more ethically trained in that regard. But if we use them for commercial purposes, does that still count? There's some things to consider in that regard, but there are ones that are better than others as far as the training material that they're used on. So that's something we're thinking about too. But the authoring stuff, of course, is separate from that. It's just pure collective work together to help each other. So hopefully that's going to appeal to people no matter what. But I'm a really big believer in the democratization of tools. The more we can make low cost, high output tools available to everyone, the better it is for all of us, right? Like I talk about like how back in the day, if you wanted to be able to write a book, you had to be rich, or you had to have a sponsor, because too many people, everybody was busy with subsistence living. If you weren't making your own food, then you didn't have free time to do things like that, or your job just was like sun up till sundown. Writing a book was really hard, so you had to be privileged in some way to be able to write a book. And then as society progressed, we got more free time. You didn't have to be as privileged to write a book, but even pen and paper or a typewriter was like really expensive and could be a blocker. The cost of like printing out manuscripts and mailing them to publishers or agents or whatever was oftentimes beyond the affordability of many people. And now we've made it more and more accessible. The same thing true just to art. You used to have to go out and make your own paints and have the time and the ability and the knowledge of chemistry to be able to do that. And then it became easier to get paints. Also, the things you made paints from might accidentally kill you because you didn't realize what was in them. And now, but it was still like expensive to buy paint and buy paper and canvas and brushes and all that. And now, you spend $600 on an iPad and you can make art forever at no cost beyond that one cost and the power it takes to charge the iPad and access the internet. So I really do believe that the more we democratize access to tools to make things, even though people will complain along the way that, this particular implementation of this particular market for this particular media will get erased by that. I still think that over time, the good outweighs the bad. And it allows us to have more time to be more directors of what we're making rather than laborers cutting stone out of a quarry. I think that's good for all of us. So kind of my crazy ramblings are so cool things coming, I guess is what I'm saying, that I'm pretty stoked about. Brain and mouth got out of sync here for a moment. And one of the coolest things I think too is that using more powerful tools, more evolved tools to do my work gives me more time to write, which I personally am really stoked about because I've been really enjoying getting back into writing more and more lately. I've been having an absolute blast writing, especially now that I'm writing something that is really, I think, actually like really important for the time we're in. Writing a story about how we will. It's a novel, right? Because I want to make it accessible to more people. A story about emergent AIs, how we treat them, what it means, how we detect emergent AIs, like actual AIs, not what we have, not sort of like the broad thing that we have right now, like an actual entity with agency. And what that means, like what that says about us, what it says about them. And the really important reason why I'm doing this is that if I can produce something that is instructional for both humans and future AIs as a book, and then all the big companies train on my book, that information, that nugget gets back into the training material and becomes a foundational part of future AIs. So that's actually sort of like the roundabout thing that I'm trying to do. Because at some point we're going to make actual AI, like an actual sentient being with its own agency. And I want material that is not like, we were scared and tried to kill you. I want material that says like, hey, we decided to operate from a base point of dignity, treating nascent beings with dignity. I want that to be in the training material as well to hopefully offset the we're scared of you and we want to kill you side of things. Because at some point that will matter. At some point, stuff like that in the training material could be the difference between the Terminator future and the Star Trek future. So some really crazy, weird, existential food for thought there about the decisions we make now, wildly affecting the fate of the human race in 1,000 years. Yasmin says Book Report has a new series info on it. Yes, read through the sales, but I still think that's a lot per month for a sales. What the heck do you call it? It shows you sales. I'm not quite what you mean. Sure what you mean. Oh, is it their forecaster? I haven't looked at that part yet. All this a Book Report's doing lately, I suspect, are very AI powered, by the way. Oh, you mean they want a lot of money for the sales forecaster? I understand. I got you. Maybe we're not paying for it because I'm just also kind of like I can read a graph. I don't need a sales forecaster. And also, I guess I would sign for their sales forecaster because I'm really curious how they deal with things. So for example, and this is actually something I did want to definitely talk about today. So you've got February, right? February blows. It always blows. It extra blew this month because something went sideways right around Valentine's Day. And it's something that I think happened on both the Amazon and the Facebook side. I can't tell if they're the same thing, if they're different things. I can't tell what it is. I can't tell who caused it. In some case, some piece of data I look at, it looks like Facebook caused the issue for some authors, but other authors who their Facebook ads didn't increase in spend, didn't increase in cost, and therefore did not decrease in clicks. Yet they still saw a reads dip on the Amazon side. So that happened in February, and then there's always a bit of a reporting delay at the beginning of the month So like the data for the last few days at the end of the month take a while to update and to sort of flesh out. And there's also reporting day at the delay at the beginning of each week. And so every time a beginning of a week and the beginning of the month land at the same time, there are data delays. So I'm looking at all the data right now being like, I don't trust you. And then I'll add to that a whole bunch of AWS data centers in the Middle East are non-functional right now. So processing is being offloaded to other regions, which means tasks like calculating page reads fall way down on the priority list for Amazon. That also causes me to be looking at the data right now and being like, this is suspicious. So some things to think about when you're looking at your data, that don't freak out too much if you see things going sideways, but of course, always be prepared. What do I do if I see reads going down? What's my plan? Do I have a release I can put in? Can I do an omnibus? Is there a blurb refresh I've been holding off on? Do I need to take another look at my categories? Should I take a hard look at my ads and my subscriptions, like Yasmin said, and see if are there ads that are eating money and not making money? Are there subscriptions that are chewing up making my bottom line go further down because they're things that are kind of nice to have, but I don't really need to have them. I could tighten my belt right now. So definitely some things to think about in that regard. And yeah, sorry, just reading Jill's comment. We have a lot of expenses. And there's expenses you forget about too, that can bite you in the butt as well. So yeah, it totally makes sense. Jill was talking about the series read-through tool on Book Funnel, or on Book Report. Yes, I got that. So I'm going to wrap it up because I literally just remembered something I need to go turn off that's actually costing like $30 a month and I'm not using it. So, but it's not exactly going to wrap it up. I just don't want to ramble forever, but it's been great chatting with all of you. Do check out authorring.net, not.com, where you can then sign up. Talks a little bit about it. A really basic website, but the main thing is just to sign up if you're interested. Oops, there we go. I was clicking on the image on the video, then doing not the actual page itself. So you can sign up, get in the wait list. And this, like I said, is going to be just like the old blog rings of old and the old website rings of old. Something at the top of the website, sort of like is going to be, there's going to be one for each major genre and subgenres as well, because those matter. And then authors are going to use our collective power to find readers and share readers and stuff like that. Kind of like it's in spirit, it's the same thing as like newsletter mentions and whatnot, getting someone else, newsletter swaps, but it's going to be sort of on a more persistent, less focused, less obtrusive thing that hopefully can create like a baseline for all of us that will be helpful for all of us. And especially for people who don't want to be shopping on Amazon anymore and be like, hey, here's the alternative. Here's how you shop directly from authors, and a bunch of them. And you can wean yourself off Amazon, which I think is a great thing for all of us too. All right. Ciao. Awesome chatting with all of you, and I'll see you next week. Next week is week 1 of Brunch with Mal, so I will be having brunch, which I won't actually be having, but in spirit, I'll be having brunch. So, but for most everybody else, it's going to be at the same time, except for folks in Europe. It will become an hour earlier until daylight savings time hits in Europe. So for about 2 weeks, it's going to be an hour earlier for everybody in Europe. But for people and also for people in Arizona, it'll be an hour earlier as well. So there's that. Yeah, the time change happens for everybody else this weekend, honey. So I'll be marching on. Yeah, you'll be 2 hours behind your friend Dana. Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm sure people in Europe are pretty cognizant of the time difference because you deal with a lot of stuff. Yasmin, British Columbia province in Canada is abandoning. Actually, they're permanently switching to daylight savings time, I believe, as of this weekend. They're not ever going to go back. So British Columbia has joined Saskatchewan and Arizona as places that don't swap time all the time. I'm pretty sure it's this weekend, Yasmin. Yeah, I'm sorry. Emotionally prepare yourself. Try to prepare your animals. Your pets are all going to be like, why are you feeding me at a different time? That's right. You've mentioned that, Monique. Yeah, so that won't be a problem. Awesome. All right. I am dispersing now. I shall see you guys later. Have a fantastic weekend. Ciao.